Have you ever wanted to hear the BG3 races ranked, but from the horse's mouth? And by horse, I mean Dungeon Master. Well, luckily for you, that's what we're doing today. So strap in.
Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy one.
So we're gonna rate each of these races and sub races from A to F, and we are starting with human. I don't know about you, but I feel like human is just very basic bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, they're versatile, right?
I feel like it's almost like a stigma for playing like a human race on
Right.
any fantasy game.
It's like, why would you go with what you are? Why aren't you RPing, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, do you want the RP choice? Which, people can argue as well. Like, oh, well, I could totally RP something completely different as a human than what I currently am. Or
True.
It's versatility. Do you want versatility? That's I think what the humans are. It's like you get your extra feat, or you get your extra ability score, or you've got the extra, depending on the version of the game or whatever that you're doing. Either it's D&D or Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever, or any other fantasy games for that matter. Like, humans have a wide variety of versatility. Bottom line.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think for them, they pretty much they're always going to be in the middle of the pack, and I don't like that.
Okay.
I hate that, because there's the only thing that's putting them in the middle of the pack, I think, is the fact that they are versatile. There's nothing else that stands out about them, really. But I mean, you could make the choice of, well, your RP is what's going to make it stand out, or your character design is going to make it stand out, which, yeah, you could do that too. But if we're just looking at stats and abilities and everything, they're very, not monotone, but it's very all across the board. There's something for everything. So I think they should probably go and C, just right.
Really? C. Okay. I was gonna give them more credit and put them in B. B for basic, but but I see what you mean, putting them right in the middle of the road. Yeah, I can see that. All right, let's put them in. Let's put them in C. They're versatile. They could do a lot of things. They can be pretty much any class, so that's good. But I wouldn't say that they have a huge advantage over anything.
No, there's no huge advantages over any of that for them, and I think that's why they belong more right in the middle, because they've got a lot of versatility, which is their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, they don't have any true bonuses or anything that stands out really to be like, oh, well, in this particular situation, here you go.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's put them in C. What is your feelings on high elf? Now, I'll just say off the bat that I love elves, so I'm going to be biased on anything elf here. But what are your thoughts on high elf?
I mean, high elves can be really awesome. I also like the elf races as well. They're really awesome. If you're going for a min-max, casting build, obviously you're going to want to do a high elf or drow or even a high half elf. Especially the high elves, they're pretty awesome. For not only they get some extra weapon proficiencies, they get they get their perception, they have keen sense.
Don't they get some resistances too?
They have the Fey ancestry, so their advantage against being charmed. They're immune to magical sleep, which is huge, because especially in lower levels, when everybody has 5 HP, it's just I cast a second level sleep and I put 8 people to sleep, and now I'm just going to walk around and go, oh, you're murdered. So
right.
That alone, especially as a rogue or something, or a casting rogue, is awesome, super useful, especially at lower levels. And then they've also got dark vision, which I cannot overstate dark vision.
No, that's totally fair. I have learned that in my playings of Baldur's Gate 3. It's pretty important.
Absolutely. With the Dragonborn stuff that I play all the time, I'm constantly fighting, being I should have taken something with dark vision, or I need that stupid ring and now I have to spend a slot on my equipment or whatever to get dark vision. But meanwhile, several races already have dark vision, and it's so useful. So
this is fair.
Fantastic for high elf. So I would say
this kind of sounds like an A tier to me.
Yeah, I would think that's probably an A tier.
Okay. All right, let's put it in A. And then we've got the cousin, if you will, the wood elf. And wood elves are usually a great choice for rangers.
Rangers, rogues,
maybe druids.
Yeah, druids as well. Pretty fantastic for those, very straightforward builds that you want. That's really going to be a good idea. So yeah, I would say A tier for those.
Okay, that was easy. Wood
Yeah,
elf.
because they pretty much have the same bonuses and proficiencies and everything. The high elf, I mean the high elf. Oh, I forgot to mention the high elf gets that one extra cantrip from the wizard spell list, and I think
Yep.
there was just a patch or whatever that changed it. Instead of intelligence, it's based on whatever your starting race or something is, or if you have a spellcasting class, it's based on that
Hmm.
instead. So that's super useful.
Yeah.
And then for the wood elves, they have the fleet of foot, so that's even better.
Mm. Yeah.
They have for especially anything that is going to be doing melee or a lot of movement around the battlefield for positioning.
Right.
That's great. Like you might not think that 1.5 meters is very useful. However, it's like teleportation. Like you can't understate teleportation. You can't understate extra movement. It's always useful.
I don't think people understand how much a meter really is until they use a move within BG3 that gives them like an extra meter or so. And I was like, oh, that actually makes quite the difference. So yeah, for sure.
Sure does. Sure does.
All right. And now we've got our 2 drow here. We're starting off with our Loathsworn drow, so our Spidey drows.
So big thing for drow, hand crossbows.
Okay.
I'm so on board with hand crossbows at the moment for almost every single build that I'm making in BG3. Just having that bonus action to do anything with even just a ranged attack. So if you're doing any sort of either ranged build or the fact that you're a caster and you're just trying to think of what you can do with this little bonus action that otherwise you'd do nothing with, hey, let's throw in a bonus action hand crossbow shot if you're dual wielding hand crossbows for your range set. Super huge. Because at that point, it's all about action economy too. So
right.
super useful. Plus, they get rapiers and short swords. So if you're doing a caster, a lot of time casters don't have anything for weapons. You're pretty much kind of pigeonholed into
Like
either using
stabs.
a quarters, like a quarterstaff, or maybe some sort of other simple melee weapon or a dagger if you're trying to build for dex, because you're just like, well, I need the AC boost, so I'm going to increase my dex, and guess what? My strength is now going to suffer because of that.
Right.
So, but I don't use it otherwise, so I guess I'm going to do everything based on finesse. They also get Fey ancestry, and they have superior dark vision, so they can see farther.
Okay.
And darkness, and then they also get drow magic. So at levels 1, 3, and 5, it's like another tiered thing as well. So like at first level they get dancing lights and fairy fire, and then they get darkness at 5. I think fairy fire is at level 3 actually, and then darkness is at 5. But all of those things very useful.
Sounds A tier to me. Based on what you're saying, I know we're putting all the elves in A tier, but like that really does sound A tier.
They've got a lot of uses, uses, and they're good for a lot of different classes too. So depending on what you want to do with that, that's great.
I mean, I played a drow in my first single player playthrough, and she was actually a druid, so it was kind of a weird mix, but she ended up being pretty powerful, so I'm all about the drow.
Oh yeah, super useful.
All right, well, I'm going to say that's an A, but the question is this, I'm going to say this wrong, Seldarin? Okay, is the Seldarin drow also an A? Is it pretty much close enough that it should also be an A?
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, in BG3, there's no difference.
Yeah. In BG3, there's no difference between Loathsworn and Seldarin, except for dialogue options.
Okay.
I played through both, just going through it. It was exactly the same. The only difference was RP choice. So I would actually put that as B, because there's nothing additional.
Okay.
Almost. And I don't want to, but some of that I think is maybe because I don't want to put all the elf races as A list.
There's nothing wrong with putting them all A tier. I mean, if it's exactly the same as Loathsworn, then I would put it A tier. I don't think it should be rated lower just because it's the same thing. I mean, the Seldarin drows are actually good drows. That's what I played. The Loathsworn drow, they're mean, and they worship a spider. They got problems.
Spiders can be good. They eat mosquitoes.
True. They do eat mosquitoes, so they have uses, but I don't need spiders that big. Okay, now we're going into our Now we're going into our half elf races here. So high half elf, should it be treated any differently from high elf? Now this is a human slash elf mix here. Does that detract from it?
I mean, you're really not like you get some bonus weapon proficiencies from the human side of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it because you don't actually get the extra skill point or the extra skill proficiency.
Okay.
So
you're giving up skill proficiency for weapon proficiency?
yeah, I would because the skill proficiencies you can figure out what it is you want from your character class.
Right.
I would say unless you're really looking for something specific that you can't, like a specific combination that you can't get from a race and a class without doing a half elf, I would say then that would bump that up. But otherwise, I think it's pretty low in regards to that because they don't get the increased carrying capacity. They don't get the extra skill, and it's not. I keep on getting it confused with 5th edition D&D, where they get the extra +1 to 1 or 2. I think it's 1 or 2 skills of their choice, and they don't do that in BG3, which I kind of wish they did.
Yeah.
I feel I would much rather trade off the weapon proficiencies or the skill proficiency and then get that extra skill point because that's what would really make that sing almost.
Right.
I think that's a lot different. So I would put them on B. I would put all of them on the B list.
Okay.
Just because they have the same racial traits as the other elves.
They're just like not as good. Not quite as good.
It's just not quite as powerful. You're really trading off for just more weapon proficiencies, which if you're wanting to do that, there are other ways to do that, which I think would be more beneficial.
Gotcha.
That's just me.
Okay, no, that makes sense to me. I was thinking B tier as well, so we were aligned on that. All right, we're finally getting away from the elves, and now we've got half orcs. There's no full orcs in BG3, but there are half orcs, which I am playing right now.
And I gotta say, that character you're playing, it's ridiculous.
So half orc seems to go really well with monk, you know?
It does. It really does. That the savage attacks and the relentless endurance, which I mean, we just did in our game the other night. We were playing, and then you got brought back, so that was awesome. Like it was like.
Wasn't that from Survival Instinct?
Was that Survival Instinct instead?
Yeah, I thought that. Same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, if I didn't have Survival Instinct active, it would have triggered the relentless endurance. So it would have been the exact same thing. So still super clutch in a lot of situations. It was just like, oh, yeah, this is AoE spell to wipe out these characters. You're gonna be caught in the mix. Sorry, and you're back at 1.
Yeah, so, I feel like half orcs are really good for any time you want to be a frontliner. You know, if you want to be a fighter, a barbarian, a paladin, a monk, anything like that. Yeah. It's like a good racial choice.
Like a tanky caster almost that you can just keep on bouncing back, you know. Yeah, I would say they don't have a lot of additional things. However, they do have dark vision, which is, like we were saying before, it's key. Right. It's super useful. So I wanted to put them in the A list, but they don't
offer as much as elves.
They don't offer as much as elves. So as much as I want to put them on the A list, I think we should put them on the B list.
Yeah, I agree. Not quite as much going on with this one, but still a good choice. Yeah. All right, and then we've got our 2 halflings, Lightfoot and Strongheart. So Lightfoot are the lucky ones, and Strongheart are the descendant of dwarven ones.
Isn't Lucky and Brave on?
So the Lightfoot, I believe with Lightfoot, they're stealthy and social and lucky, if I remember correctly. Maybe I've got the lucky part wrong. Maybe Lucky is with Strongheart. But I remember the Lightfoots being stealthy because that's what I chose for my Frodo build was the Lightfoot. Yeah,
they have. Yeah, I'm looking now. They have the naturally stealthy. They have advantage on stealth checks. They do have lucky and brave.
Oh, okay.
Lightfoot and Strongheart get luck and brave, which that's super clutch.
Yeah.
For a lot of those things, especially for like big boss fights that are constantly like fearing you. That brave is awesome. That way you don't have to waste it on like heroism or something.
Right.
I would say that because they're a more diminutive race, they can't move as far. So unless you're
Right.
doing something like a halfling monk, which would be hilarious, kind of want to do that now. But if you're doing like a halfling monk where you get the step of the wind and you can increase your movement speed, or you're playing a caster and you can have long strider or haste or
Misty step.
retreat, like
Yeah.
all those kind of things to increase mobility, you're going to be constantly either running around the battlefield or you got to focus on some sort of ranged, I think. Which is not to say it can't be done, but you're going to spend most of your turn running around,
Right.
just to catch
Way
up with
positioning. Yeah.
Yep.
That's fair.
But super good for rogues or any sort of range thing, or even some casters as well. You can like having that luck is great when you really need it. That's super useful. And then
I'm feeling C tier because they're not. Why? Well, because they're not bad. They're definitely not. I would not consider them D or F.
No,
but I don't think they are as powerful as the half elves and the half orc.
Yeah, definitely not as powerful as half elves and half orc.
You think they should be lower than C?
No, I was wondering if we could make a case for B just because of luck and brave, but I don't.
Is that enough of a difference to kind of like counteract the mobility issue?
Yeah, that part I really don't like, especially I would say C.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because I haven't run across a whole lot of things that are doing the frightened conditions. So it's pretty much either naturally stealthy or resilience.
Right.
Which there's a lot of things that do poison damage, so that's very useful in early game. However, really the major benefit I think is the stealth and luck, which you're trading off a lot for just being stealthy and luck.
Right.
So yeah.
And there are other ways to get that. All right. And then we've got our two dwarf types, gold dwarf and shield dwarf. I don't actually remember what the deal with the gold dwarf is.
So
I haven't played a dwarf yet.
Yeah, so the gold dwarf, they have dwarven toughness, which so you get it increases your hit point maximum by 1, and you gain 1 again every time you gain a level. So you get more HP every time you level up.
Okay, I mean,
especially if you're
pretty handy.
Yeah, very useful.
Doesn't the shield dwarf get that too, though?
I don't know. They might. I don't recall. But the shield dwarf gets light armor and medium armor proficiency.
Interesting.
So useful. A lot of things don't really give heavy armor proficiency right off the bat. That's more focused on class.
Right.
So if you really want to do like some frontliney caster or something, and you really don't want to have to take a level of fighter or a level of cleric or something just to get those proficiencies in armor or weapons, because all dwarves are proficient in battle axes, hand axes, and light hammers and war hammers. So if you want to be kind of upfront in the lines, very useful just from a class standpoint. All of them resistant to poison, and they get advantage against being poisoned. They also have dark vision, which very useful. Downside is again slow, small
mobility. Yeah.
It's the mobility. So if you do stuff to counterbalance that, hey, great. Unlike the halflings, though, they have the dark vision, which is awesome. Dwergar, the Grey Dwarves, get superior dark vision, so they get basically the same as the Drow, which is awesome.
Yeah, so it's almost like the dark vision kind of counteracts the not so great mobility.
Yeah, and then I would say probably Shield Dwarf would be B tier.
Okay.
And Dwergar, I would actually say is A tier.
Because of the superior dark vision?
Superior dark vision, and not only do they have resistance against poison damage, but they also get advantage against saving throws, against illusions, and against being charmed or paralyzed. So anytime you get advantage, that's a huge thing, because that's basically an extra dice roll that you can use to save. That's incredibly great. And they get the same weapon proficiencies as the other dwarves, so there's nothing lost there. They also have Dwergar magic, so they can cast Enlarge and Invisibility.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah,
awesome.
No, that's a strong case for Dwergar. I see why you said that. What are you thinking for the gold dwarf? Are they in alignment with shield, or are they a little bit weaker and should be under C?
I think they should be C.
Yeah,
because with that toughness, you can if you're a fighting class and going solely for a fighting class, you can get toughness by taking the tough feat. I mean, what else are you going to use your feats for? Especially for fighter, you get an extra feat as a fighter. Hey, I'll just take tough and my HP will double as soon as
Yeah.
I take that, and increase if I'm leveling up further from that point. So yeah, I would say that's C.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me. I am in agreement. And then we've got more little people. We've got the gnomes: forest gnome, deep gnome, rock gnome.
I love the gnomes.
I think all of the gnomes have dark vision, right? Or does the forest gnome not have dark vision?
I think they all have dark vision. I'm pretty
believe
sure that
so.
they all have dark vision.
Okay.
So that's awesome.
So they already have an advantage over the halflings just with that.
For a rock gnome, I would say it's actually I would put that as our first D list.
Really? Okay. What's the thought behind that?
Because the really only beneficial thing that you're getting from there, I think, is the history expertise right off the bat, which, unless you're doing something for RP choices, that's not going to come into play a whole lot, I don't think.
Right.
And they don't currently have Artificer as a class. So
okay.
if they had Artificer as a class, I would say that would be really great, but they don't yet, if that's something that they're going to come in with.
So that's really the only thing they have going for them other than the dark vision.
Yeah, okay. Dark vision. I mean, all the gnomes have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. So that's great. They've got a lot of resistance kind of to magical effects, which is great. But with the slow speed, because again, diminutive race, so they're going to be going slower than everybody else. And they don't get anything other than that and dark vision. Why? Like, what's the point? So I would put that as a D, because otherwise you're trading off a whole bunch that you could be doing other things. And then but
you think that the forest and deep gnome belong higher up?
Yes, I think forest gnome should be C, because they get speak with animals.
Oh, so okay. That's kind of a big deal. Yep.
They don't have any other skill proficiencies or anything. So, but where you could get so many quests and everything from speaking to animals in this game, I would bump that up to a C. For Deep Gnome, just because I saw our friend Grim play just ridiculous Deep Gnomes, I would bump those up to A.
Really, all the way to A with elves?
Yep.
My goodness.
Because but I don't want to, but I'm seeing them be mad nasty with him playing it. So
that might be more about min-maxing the class than the race, though.
A little bit. It plays into the min-maxing for the class.
Yeah.
Because you get, not only do you have that benefits and everything from those saving throw advantage, you get superior dark vision so you can see farther, you get stone camouflage so you can be super stealthy, and you have advantage on stealth checks. I mean,
and that's coming from the race?
And that's coming from the race.
Oh.
So
okay.
If you want to be a super stealthy thing, either monk, or like a shadow monk, or a rogue, or even just a wizard that hangs in the back and hides until his turn, I mean, that's super awesome, and it's going to make anything done against you harder to do because you have that resistances,
right?
Or those resistances. So yeah, I would say either A or B. I don't know. What do you think? I'm
gonna give it a B because of the mobility issues. I think it's based on what you're saying. It's still really good, but it is a very diminutive race, even more so than the Dwergar. So yeah. I'm gonna say B for that one.
Well, it's weird though. Like, all of the diminutive races, they all have 7.5 meters. You would think that they would get a little bit less here and there, for the halflings and the gnomes.
I would think that the dwarves might have more mobility via their jumping, though.
I think so, but you could do that with just increasing the strength score.
That's true. So, all right. I'll put. No, now you're changing your mind.
I'm changing my mind. I think it is. I think I was thinking a little bit more of the class, but even still, I think the deep gnomes lend themselves to min-maxing better.
Sure.
For a lot of different classes because of that, or for specifically like sneaky classes. So I would say, I think you're right. I think B.
Okay. Fair enough. And now we're coming to our tieflings: Asmodeus, Mistopheles, and Zariel. That's cut off, but that's a Zariel. You know more about tieflings than I do. I haven't played as one yet. Well, I played a little bit as one, but didn't get too far.
Well, again, dark vision right off the bat.
Yep. All
I
of
think if
them.
something has dark vision, I think that should put them right off the bat in the B list.
Because of how
Just like
important it is.
yeah, just as like a baseline, just because that's less things you have to do. You know, a torch or like a wing that gives you dark vision. Or something.
We've gone against that though, because rock gnome's in D, forest gnome is in C. So it doesn't automatically make something a B.
I feel like with the forest and rock gnomes, there were
Detractors.
they had like those detractors that pushed them lower.
Okay, so starting rate before you look at the other traits is a B. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
That didn't quite make sense, but then no, it's I feel like the other things lowered it down because they
Okay.
that slower movement and whatever. So yeah,
Sure.
but they have resistance to fire. Almost everything at some point you're gonna run into fire damage.
Yep.
One way or another.
It's gonna happen. Yep.
It's gonna happen. There's always explosions and things going off and everything. So fire resistance always useful.
Yeah.
So I think that just solidly keeps almost all of those races in the B list.
Yeah.
Just by that. And then they have, I think it's more either RP choice or class choice for what you do next. Either Asmodeus, Mephistopheles, or Zariel. Because Asmodeus, you get more of the benefits of magic and casting. Same with Mephistopheles, and then
Zariel is like more fit to the melee classes, right?
Exactly. So it really depends.
Depends on what you want to play. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're very good at what they do, and they're very good at fitting the builds that you want and supporting the builds that you want for whatever class you pick. I think looking at it and everything, Asmodeus, you get Produce Flame, which is super useful. It's an extra light source, and you can huck it as like almost a firebolt cantrip, not to be confused with Fireball. Two completely different things.
Yep, very different.
It's like I'm going to produce flame and cast fireball.
Yeah.
You have your produce flame, you have your hellish rebuke and darkness at 1, 3, and 5 levels. So very useful. You got your reaction, you've got crowd control ability with darkness, and you've got produce flame, which it can be utility and offensive, which is nice. Everybody kind of shies away from utility cantrips. Like, think about how often it is you use your different cantrips that do damage.
Right.
Like, do you really use every single one of those, or are you always focusing on one of your damage dealing cantrips more than the others? So thinking about that. But then you go to Mephistopheles and you get your Mage Hands. So again, utility cantrip. You have Burning Hands, which is a one-off for like a 15-foot cone of fire. Again, fire damage. And then you have your Flame Blade spell. So you can basically summon a Burning Sword, which is awesome. Very useful. So if you're a caster and you get cornered, Burning Hands. If you're still cornered and they close in with you, hey, Flame Blade, and it's concentration, so you can keep that going until you lose it. Very useful because you're automatically proficient in Flame Blade. Because it's just based on your spell casting. So that's awesome. And then for melee, Thaumaturgy, Searing Smite, Branding Smite. Yeah, you got your utility and then 2 offensive. Branding Smite, very useful because it prevents things from going invisible. Yeah, I want to put all of them in the A list just because the bonuses are great. However, there's nothing that really shines out about them. Like, they're really good supportive for whatever class you choose, and you can pick a tiefling to fit whatever class it is you want. But I think
you don't think the fire resistance is setting them apart?
No, not really. I think it's setting them apart and keeping them at the P setting, but I don't think they should necessarily be on that A list just because they get some cool things at 1, 3, and 5, but otherwise they just have fire resistance and dark vision, which dark vision, again, is super huge, and fire resistance is great. You can get that with a potion if you really need to. So while it's very useful to have, and then you can use elixirs or whatever for other things, but I think it's a solid B choice for all of them. because
Okay.
they don't necessarily stand out, in my
That
opinion.
is fair enough. I will go with B with you on that one. And then we've got a real interesting one. Most people were not familiar with this race prior to BG3, myself included. Githyanki.
I love Gith.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they're
They're awesome.
they're awesome
They are-
fighters, that's for sure.
They are awesome fighters. They're great. They got super awesome mobility. They have enhanced sleep. They have Misty Step that they can use once per short rest, once per long rest. Either way, it's awesome. 'cause
They've also
sometimes-
got Rally and I believe
Yep.
Parry. Is that Githyanki based too? Because I have
No, that's fighter based.
Okay,
Most of
'cause
them
I-
are fighters, so you usually see that a lot.
Yeah, I see that all over the place. Okay, but not laying, rally is race based though.
Is it?
I think.
No,
I thought it
think
was for
Rally is
gift.
Fighter.
Oh, is it?
Mhm.
Okay, that's my bad. I thought
think
that was
that's-
race based.
It's all good. But even still, like short swords, long swords, great swords, like a lot of martial weapons right
Yep.
off the bat. So that's awesome. You get light armor and medium armor. So if you want to be frontline, you can.
Mhm.
Surprisingly, no dark vision.
That is surprising. You would think they would have it. They just seem like the type,
always
especially
thought-
because like they traverse so many different like planets and everything. You would think that
Yep.
that would just like be an evolution of theirs at some
Yep.
point would to have dark vision.
That's what I thought too. But I think it's I think game wise, I think it has kept it so that it doesn't keep them from being super OP.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like they get astro knowledge too, which is awesome. You
Hmm.
get proficiency in all skills corresponding to a chosen ability each long rest. So at the start of your long rest, like when you're activating your ritual spells, if you have those, or if you have a caster or whatever that's activating ritual spells, activate astral knowledge. Who cares? You now have proficiency in all those skills. So if there's like a place where the party's lacking, they're super useful
Mhm.
because they can provide those bonuses to those skills, and they're proficient in them.
Wow. Okay.
So that's awesome, and it can change every long rest. They just can only use astro knowledge once per long rest. So once
Gotcha.
you pick it, that's it until that long rest is over.
Okay.
But yeah, so and then they have Mage Hand again, very useful utility cantrip, and Enhanced Sleep. They're very mobile with Enhanced Sleep and Misty Step. So they don't have Dark Vision, but I want to put them on A list.
Yeah.
They're one of those few other classes that I think that can really make any class sing. Like,
Right.
if you want to focus on whatever class it is, especially if you're not multi-classing and you're taking that one class to the max, this is one of those races that can really make that like super powerful.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Complement with feats.
I think
But-
they should be A as well. They may.
It's super underused.
Yeah, I know. Like
Underrated.
according to the stats that came from Larian on the races, this was pretty low on the list. So
I'm surprised at that. I mean,
I think it's
I
their
know it's-
attitude. I honestly
think
think it's the personality and attitude. It's like even though they're really powerful, they're all like assholes. So like no,
Oh, yeah.
I think it turned people off from wanting to play one. But keep in mind though, you can play a Githyanki and make them not an asshole. So
yeah.
if you prefer that,
Be like the one non-asshole,
yeah, show everybody else up.
right?
All right, and we're in for the home stretch here with all of our Dragonborn, which is quite a few here. I think.
Respect, I will not put every single one of them on the A list.
Okay, thank you, because I had a feeling that you might want to do that because I know you love Dragonborn, but there's got to
do.
be some pros and cons depending on which type you choose. I would
Absolutely.
think.
For the Dragonborn, it's all about what resistance is. And I would actually put them, don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. I can't help it though. I would actually put them all, well, almost all. Here, I'll single out the first ones and I'll wait. Okay, so gold and red
Mm-hmm.
are your main fire damage and fire resistance.
Yep.
So they get their fire breath and they get resistant to fire. Brass also has fire and everything, but it's either a line or a cone. So and that's basically the main difference between some of like the red does a cone, the gold does a cone, brass does a line, and it's kind of done that way because it's more lore based. It's these
Okay.
are the nobility kind of things of the metallic and the chromatic dragon races, so their breath weapons were more powerful, so it was considered a cone was most powerful.
Okay.
And then the line was for the lesser worms, so like you got your black dragons and your lightning, like all those were just considered originally just like a line. But
Okay.
with even with some of that stuff, there's not a whole lot of cold damage that
Hmm.
I've seen so far in the game. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've gotten way farther in the game because I've been
Um,
making new characters every 5 minutes. So
no, I don't think there's a ton of it based on what I've seen throughout the game. I don't
okay.
recall it ever being like a big thing. It does come up sometimes, but
Yeah, a lot of things do poison and acid damage. So, I mean, if you're looking for resistances, yeah, that's great. You could do that, and that's be a very solid choice in those situations.
sure.
The same could be said with fire. Same for lightning. There's a ton of lightning damage and everything that I've run across. Lots of poison damage. Almost a lot of animals and everything that you come across in BG3 do poison damage. So there's all of that. They've got standard movement. They and I still find this surprising. This is the one thing that really irritates me about Dragonborn. No dark vision.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
All the dragons in D&D 5th edition and earlier editions as well have true sight and blind sight or all of those other things. Yet and they also have dark vision, yet Dragonborn no dark vision. Why? Why? I get that they're trying to make it a more balanced play style and everything for a lot of those things. However, that no dark vision makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, agreed.
Like I get it. I get it. Like it doesn't make sense. Like if they want to balance it a little bit, great. Make it so that you can't have the lightning breath until like level 3 or 5.
Mm,
Like they have to grow into it almost. They have to get strong enough to do it.
right.
That would make sense. But at the same time, it's just like, really? Really? So I would say, and it pains me to do this because
Mm,
I do love my Dragonborn.
I know you do. I know you
I've got a
do.
ton of them. I've got a ton of them. I use them all the time. But I would actually I would put almost all of them on the D list.
Wow.
Yeah. They don't have any other thing that really makes them stand out other than the fact that they gain resistance to a damage type and they get the breath weapon,
Right.
which in certain situations is incredibly useful. If you're a spellcaster and you're out of spell slots and you're suddenly surrounded, having that 15, 17-foot cone that does damage to a bunch of enemies, clearing your way,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic.
Yep.
Super useful. But otherwise, there's nothing. Like I very rarely have used my breath weapon for a lot of things. Like I used it just the other night, I think, just because I was out of spell slots, and that was it. So
Okay.
it's almost no reason. But I would bump probably. I want to move them up higher just because I like them all so much, just for RP wise.
Are any of the resistances worth bumping them up to a C?
Thinking maybe the fire or acid, just because you run into those a lot of the time, but I don't think so, because you could get that with an elixir. Like if all you're doing is choosing Dragonborn for the resistance to a damage type, just stockpile resistance elixirs.
Well, how easy are they to make, though? I think the fire resistance elixir you can get access to pretty easily, but what about an acid resistance elixir? I don't even know if I've seen one of those.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's a good point. Let's look up elixirs.
I don't actually think I've ever gotten a hold of an acid resistant elixir before, and I know I have gotten fire resistant ones.
There are acid resistance elixirs.
Okay. They just apparently don't show up much.
Fire resistance. Yeah. There are resistances to all of the damage types.
Okay.
From what it looks like. So that's like all of the elemental and psychic as well, and radiant and necrotic and force. So there is that. I would say if they came out with like a Fitzban's Treasury of Dragons update and they include like gem dragons or something in there, so that you can automatically get force resistance or psychic resistance. A psychic resistance Dragonborn would be clutch in BG3. Not to say any spoilers, but that would be super useful.
Yeah, this is true.
And I would say that would even bump it just based that you get that at all times. I would say they could bump that up to the B tier.
Yeah.
But I think that I don't know.
Everything on the D tier.
Yeah, I would say everything on D tier. It kills me. It really does because I love my Dragonborn. They're my favorite. Which, despite this list, they are my favorite race. Okay, yeah. So it looks like acid, cold, force damage, radiant damage, thunder resistance are all not craftable, but fire damage is.
Yep.
So okay. With that said, it's not craftable. So
Which one isn't? Acid?
so acid.
Okay.
So you got your whatever it is. It's your copper and your black dragons are acid.
Okay. Green, black.
And then let's see. So I would bump that up to C.
Copper and black. Okay.
And then same for your white and silver for the cold resistance because
That's also not
craftable.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, because you got a couple fire ones on here, and blue is that lightning resistance that you can craft, and then green is that poison resistance. Yep. Okay.
So all that stuff you can craft. I know you can get poison resistance from Druid from the Circle of Spores.
Yeah.
You can also get it from being a hunter and choosing. Oh, it's one of the class options for hunter. I can't remember which it is.
For ranger?
Yeah. Is it Gloomstalker?
No, Gloomstalker. No, isn't it Gloomstalker that you were talking about? That's what I was thinking of.
No, it's the Wasteland Wanderer.
Oh, Wasteland Wanderer. Okay.
So it's Wasteland Wanderer. There's two that give you there's three choices for the Wasteland Wanderer that each give you a resistance.
Mm-hmm.
One gives you fire, one gives you cold, and one gives you poison resistance.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's a super benefit for the class itself,
right?
Because that way you can get some of that, and those aren't craftable, so you're automatically doing it. That's actually a really good point that I didn't even think of. So well done. But with just that, all the other Dragonborn races, I don't think they have no other skill proficiencies, no other benefits. They don't have dark vision. There's almost nothing else except for the poison or except for the resistances. It kills me to do it. I love my Dragonborn, so
you will survive. I promise you. You will survive this.
I'm kind of irritated though that we got to the end of the list and there's nothing in F tier.
Yeah, I was gonna say we that is it, and nothing we felt was F. I mean, I guess that's a good thing though, right? It means that all of the races have some kind of use, even if not much. They're not completely useless, because that would be F. Would just be you have no use to me. I wouldn't ever choose you. So I mean, that's a good thing. All of the races have something going for them, even if it isn't much at all. So I think this is a pretty healthy list. You know, it's actually relatively balanced.
I mean, all of those can fit some sort of build or whatever that you want, or fit an RP choice. Like all my Dragonborn characters are all RP choices.
Yeah. It's all about how you want to play it. If you're more into the min-maxing, or if you're more into the role playing, you play it the way you want to. That's kind of the big pro to playing something like Baldur's Gate 3, is you just have so much flexibility in how you play it and what your priorities are. I hope you enjoyed that deep dive on the races of Baldur's Gate 3. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.
Play Dragonborn!